And we're live once again. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to episode number 85 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. We are going to be on with Mr. Cameron Rico, who right on time. Hey, Dale, how are you? All right. So, as people join in, let me just give them a shout out. All right. Hey, Pedro Rodriguez. Okay, Lamar Davis. All right, good to see you. Okay, Mr. Rico, can you hear me?
You. How are you doing?
All right. Okay. I'm
doing
good, man.
good.
How are you?
Thank you for having me on your show.
All right. So oh yeah, no problem. You know, you have like a movie star name. Anybody ever told you
Yeah,
that?
I'm not sure what kind of movies, but yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
God. All right. So listen. So everybody, my guest, the dialogue partner today is a guy. We were talking about how our paths must have crossed, but what year did you start at the Kali Academy in '76?
That's correct.
Correct.
Yep.
At age 13.
13 years old, started in the kids class.
Right.
Go ahead.
And then, but the Kali Academy closed in '84, right?
Yeah, that's probably about 84, right?
Yeah, I think it was '84. Okay, so then our paths may not have crossed because I started going out to LA in '83, and I only made it to the Kali Academy once before I started going out more regularly, but that was at the Inasano Academy in Marina del Rey.
All right.
Yeah. So now is my opportunity to get to know you.
Yeah. So, I made it all the way to the end when they shut down the Kali Academy, moved into the IMB Academy, right? That transition. Right. So in '76, I really stumbled across the Kali Academy. I had no idea who taught there, what it was about. A friend of mine told me. I knew where it was. I kind of, traveled that route. I had no idea.
Because you lived in the area.
Yeah, I kind of lived in the area at that time. But I got lucky because I moved even closer to the Kali Academy just by coincidence. But so, yeah, I had no idea that the person teaching, Danny Inosanto, was, had a close relationship with Bruce Lee. And I'll tell you, at 13 years old, I was, a Bruce Lee fanatic, huge fanboy, right? My bedroom wall, you couldn't see any wall. It was poster after poster, so.
Yeah, but you were a member of a worldwide club,
right.
Man.
I still have the magazines. My friend and I, probably at 11 years old, I lived in probably about 20 miles south of downtown LA, and at 11 years old, we would hop the bus and go to Chinatown and collect as many Chinese magazines on Bruce Lee as possible. And I still have those magazines. We'd get them home, and you couldn't bend the pages, and we'd slide them into a sleeve and put them back on the bookshelf, and that's kind of where they landed.
Yes.
And I still have them. It's the same magazine. So yeah, big Bruce Lee fan. I remember the first movie I saw and how it impacted me. So lucky enough to train with Inosanto, being that guy.
Hey, can I branch off for a while? Tell me about the artwork behind it.
Oh, so you may or may not know, I retired police officer. So some of the things that are on the wall here are kind of related to my law enforcement background. I was a defensive tactics instructor at the department, a member of our SWAT team. So those kind of that kind of mentality, that kind of thinking was really and is a big part of my life still.
Right. Well, thank you for your service. And so did you that makes me think of something. This is not on my notes at all. Does the name Guy
For
Mato?
Sure. Yeah, he was LA County deputy, right? Mm-hmm.
Right.
Jerry.
Right. Okay. Did you work
Yeah, he
with
was part
him?
of the. Oh no, I didn't work with him. No, I'm kind of a little south of LA County. We're not LA County, but
Okay.
yeah, I worked for a department in LA County.
Hmm. And Sifu Richard Bustillo, he did work
Yes, he
with the
did.
sheriff's
Right.
department,
In fact, he's the first
right?
one who told me that I should pursue a career in law enforcement as a kid. Yeah.
No, really. Why did
Well,
he tell
I
you
didn't
that?
really have a direction. I mean, I was
Uh-huh.
just a kid, but where I grew up in Wilmington, as part of Los Angeles County. You didn't want to share that with a lot of people that you wanted to be a police officer. It was a really bad area. So, it never really crossed my mind to be a police officer until he kind of sparked that interest. And even then it was like, I
Yeah.
don't think I don't know. But, he kept after me on that. And, I think that was one of the influences and the reasons why I chose that path was because of Richard Bustillo and a lot of people in law enforcement. He was he
Right.
really pushed that on a lot of the young kids at the time to, pursue a career in law enforcement. So I was lucky enough to listen.
You know, that's not something that I think I've ever heard. You always hear that about a kid's karate
Hmm.
instructor. That the karate instructor gave them guidance. You never hear that about a kid's Jeet Kune Do
Yeah, that's
instructor.
right. Yeah, because they kind of just follow that path. But
You know?
Richard
Yeah.
Bustillo was a big influence on my career as law enforcement. In that sense.
Hmm. Wow. So people always talk about New York
Mhm.
cop shows, but aren't there like favorite LA cop shows amongst LA cops?
I don't know. I don't do too much TV.
No?
I hear there's a good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't watch too much TV. Honestly. Yeah.
But what about movies? Do you watch a lot of movies?
No, not really. I'm a big
No?
YouTube fan, so I would have the attention, for
Okay.
about as long as maybe a 10-minute video, and then I'm done. So the movies are kind of like,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
fall asleep on.
Well, we'll take this episode and we'll
I'm
chop it
just
into
kidding.
little bit pieces. Right? Um, but you did your outfit. Well, is it still your outfit? Is it RAT or RAT Beach
Oh, yeah.
Fight Club?
So
How
Rat
should we call
Beach,
it?
that Rat is an acronym for something. It depends on where you're from or who. Right at the end of Torrance Beach. Rat Beach is like the
Right,
most southern part of the Torrance Beach area, and I think Rat is actually
right,
an acronym. It could mean that there was plagued with rats a long time ago. I don't know.
right.
Yeah,
So yeah, so it's either right after Torrance or right
something
at
like that.
Torrance or
Yeah,
something, right?
yeah. And I used to train there a long time ago with a group of guys, and it was a really good environment. Especially after training, we'd
Yeah.
just beat up. It was in the evening time, and I just remember how nice it was after that. That contrast of really struggling with somebody
Hmm.
and really being
Hmm.
physical, and then you kind of settle into just kind of absorbing the water and the whole beach
Yeah.
environment. So
Yeah, that LA
yeah, so
vibe,
years
huh?
later, I thought, man, how nice is that? And how therapeutic it is. And I started my own
Right.
Rat Beach Fight Club. And I haven't done it for a couple of years, but it was a summer there where a group of us guys would get together and girls, and I try to make it conducive for everybody. I didn't want to limit it to just kind of the sluggers and those kind of
Hmm.
people who trained. I really wanted to open up to a lot of
Yeah.
people, and again, it was free, and I just wanted them to experience the martial arts.
Yeah.
So
You use the word sluggers, and a lot of what I read about you, I got to ask you this question. During your time at the Kali Academy, did they do anything
boy,
besides sparring?
no, it's funny. I don't know how there weren't more injuries there. It was a concrete floor. There was no mats, and
Right, right.
we really swung for the fence. you know, that Innocenta would always say, you know, 80%, 70% should be your training, you know, power wise.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't think anybody
Yeah.
listened to that. I mean, there was many times where, you know, I would, you know, be sparring, I'd be out on my feet, and, you know, I never went down,
Yeah.
but I don't know what kept people from, you know, just kind of going down and really hurting themselves. But I mean, talking about reality, I mean, there was there was a lot of haymakers
Yeah.
thrown back in that day.
Mm-hmm. So let's backtrack on that again. So you walked in at age 13. Now, the class that you observed, if I read correctly, it was Innocento teaching it. So that means it wasn't a kids class.
Oh, so the
right?
kids class, yes, I started out in the kids class for a couple of years.
Right, but here's what I'm saying. The first class that you saw could not have been a kids class. So why would you think this is the place for me? If you watched a bunch of older guys,
yeah, you know,
going
right.
at each
You know
other.
what's funny about that is I think I did walk into the kids class was my first experience.
Oh,
Yeah, because
okay.
you know, I think it was school buddies or, you know, some acquaintance of mine, and what's funny is it took me a while to really pull the trigger on going there. You know, I kind of visited it, you know, kind of that guy that's like, hey, you're gonna sign up or not? It's like, you know, taking notes.
Right.
Yeah, so I finally pulled the trigger, and that's kind of how my life is anyway. I kind of study it and watch it and from a distance, and then, you know, decide if something I want to, you know, jump into. So this was no different. I've always been like that. So I think it was probably, honestly, it was probably the kids class I first monitored when I signed up.
Huh. Okay. So this is the 1970s, and at the Kali Academy there was a kids class being taught by
No, it
Dan and
was
Sam.
taught by Ted Lukai. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. See, that's what
I think Ted and Jerry Petit kind of shared. I think Jerry was on his way out. I may have trained under him a couple times, but really, Ted was the head instructor there for that kids class. Man, how privileged was I to study under Ted?
You know, shouldn't we do a movie about that place?
Right. I would love to just go back there and do like a short video of what that place looks like now, and then in contrast of what it looked like back then, because it's a warehouse, you know, and it's you know, I'm sure there's a lot of machinery, but boy, the personalities at that place, you can really write a book. Yeah. But yeah.
Man, that's
Ted, amazing martial artist, amazing, you know, person, you know, first and foremost. He really was another big influence on my martial art training. I remember there was a point in time when I had a fight at school, and you know, some of the other students snitched me out, you know, because there was like no rules, that no fighting allowed, or you'll be, you know, kicked out. So he was kind of put into a position where he had to talk to me at a minimum. And I was not the kid who looked for fights, you know, but, you know, couldn't avoid them sometimes. So he pulled me into the office, and he said, you know, we're not supposed to be fighting. You could get kicked out of the school for this. And then kind of like in a low tone, he said, you know, but between you and I, if someone picks on you, you kick their ass. So yeah, so I'm like, I like this guy already, right? Good guy. So you know, I promised to you know, never fight again, but it was hard to keep that one. But yeah, so yeah, I really admire Ted. I mean, just an outstanding person. I really miss him. Really.
Yeah, it's so much history, man. I mean, because you know, you mentioned in the stuff that I found about you, this was the era of Chris Kent, of Jeff Amata, you know. Actually, I've seen some people come on here that I know they're on here because it's you that I'm talking to today.
Well, hello.
For sure.
I guarantee you, right?
I guarantee you. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm trying to remember, how did I get in touch with you?
You know, it might have been someone.
Do you remember?
Been someone's, maybe Chris Kent's podcast, and I might have commented on it, or so I think that was the link between,
Ah,
between us.
okay,
Something like that. Then
okay.
maybe you kind of, well, who is this person? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if that's how it happened, it makes perfect sense to me because I didn't recognize
Mm.
your name, but obviously you were somebody who knew what he was talking about. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I got to
Right.
check this guy out. Right. And then I saw the beach stuff and I saw what you were doing and I go, man, this is probably one of the great unknowns from that era,
Well,
so I gotta get this guy on the
I'm glad
program.
you did. Yeah, there's a lot of guys that really never pursued either teaching or making a name for themselves,
Yeah.
outside the Kali Academy. But man, there were some great fighters that came out of that school. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I think I've been doing this for about
mm,
a year and a half, right? And I still cannot get Freddie Jin or Blaze Loong,
yes.
right? Or those kinds of guys to come on. I
Oh,
can't
well, I'm
get
going to
them,
talk to
you
Freddie
know?
about that. I'm in, close, semi-close contact with Freddie, and if
Yeah.
you've never worked with Freddie, he's an amazing boxer. Uh, he really helped
Yeah.
me in a couple of my fights. I
Yeah.
always say he could write an encyclopedia on just the jab alone. I mean, there's so many different ways to
Yeah.
throw that jab, and he, worked with me a couple fights, and
Hmm.
outstanding person. But yeah, just an amazing boxer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish you
Yeah.
could talk to
I saw.
Freddie. Uh,
I'll
yeah.
get him. I'll get because I have to tell you this. Here's who's saying hello to you. Tanya
Oh,
Subeng
hi,
Subeng
Tanya. Hi.
Monroe.
Oh, another great
Yeah,
person,
yeah.
and an incredible
Oh
martial artist
man,
too. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For sure. I remember seeing Freddie as part of the demo team that came over in
Mm.
1983 when we were at UFC
Okay.
Irvine.
Uh-huh.
He was part of that demo team, and even the guys in that demo team, man, they were
Right.
intimidating as
Yeah, I
hell.
know. That's
You know,
true. That's true.
I mean,
Hmm. Uh, yeah,
so
Was another one. Yeah, I
uh-huh,
loosely keep in
yeah,
touch with him on Facebook too. And Blaze was another.
okay,
Jeff Chung, Blaze, they were partners. A good
yep,
friend of mine, who I respect a lot. We started around the same time was Craig Homa, and
mm-hmm,
talking about a level of dedication I've never seen before. I don't think he ever missed a day, training at the
right,
Kali Academy. And we kind of climbed
yeah,
about the same time we started, and a lot of respect for
yeah.
him. But you don't hear some of these guys, and
Well, I met all of those guys that you just mentioned. I met them in Marina
mm.
del Rey. So now the big mystery for me then is where were you? What I mean, if it's something you can talk about.
So at what point when they moved to Marina Del Rey?
What so yeah, so this is 1983,
Hmm.
84, 85,
Right.
86, right? So now there's the IMB because I used to go out to the
Hmm.
IMB also, but that was just in the mornings on like Tuesdays and
Yeah.
Thursdays,
So I chose
So
to take the path of the IMB, which is, I think, convenient, close to home.
mhm,
Had everything I
mhm,
still looked for in my training, the boxing
yeah,
ring, the bags, the weights, which is big
yeah,
big part of my training still. So I chose to stay. I did go to the marina a couple times, but it just for one reason or another, I stood by the IMB Academy. So
right. Well, yeah, because so today, right? There's probably a whole industry about how to set up your martial arts school and what have you. The IMB was state of art 30 something years
yeah,
ago,
and even
you
yes, it
know?
was, and even the original concept of the IMB was even different. What the actual IMB became, they wanted places where they could house instructors or students from out of town or out of state.
Hmm.
and you had the shower facility and all that stuff and the weights, and it really was, the concept
Yeah.
was ahead of its time. Yeah.
Okay, so for people who might be really young and they don't know what we're talking about, let me describe it. You tell me
Okay.
if I'm correct. You walk in, and there's like a little reception on your right side, and then maybe a couple of offices behind that. On your left side was a rack of heavy bags, and maybe even let's see, top and bottom, and maybe even speed bags, and a Wing Chun dummy or something, and then the ring.
Right in the center of the
right. Yeah. You walk past that, and on your left side is the lockers and the bathrooms and all
That's
that.
correct. Yep.
Right? You go to your left and you walk down a little hallway, and the first room is this big red painted room with the weights.
Yeah, that's right. Your weights, the first room you came in.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And then there's classroom number 1 and classroom number 2.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that it? That would work today.
Yeah, absolutely. You get the right instructors in there and the right clientele, and yeah, it's a place where everybody could go, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before it was the IMB Academy, it was a weightlifting gym. I trained at that too before it was the IMB Academy. Yeah. It was
really?
It was the whole room with, without the dividers, and yeah, that closed down, and then the IMB Academy opened up. So yeah, it feels like I was there forever.
Okay. Right. Yeah. All right. And so was law enforcement like your job out of high school or out of college or what have you?
No, it took me a while to get into law enforcement. I'd done security for a number of years. It was very competitive, law enforcement, getting into law enforcement. Took me a while. Yeah.
Really?
Trying to get into it at that time was very competitive. So it took me a long time, or it took me a while to get into law enforcement. And even right out of high school, I still wasn't quite sure if that's, in my mind, it was just something would be hard to handle, some of the nonsense you have to put up as a police officer. It's just I just wasn't ready for that. It took a little while, but once I started getting the ball rolling and deciding this is what I want to do, and there was a pivotal point in my life where I really did see that is the only thing I want to do for the rest of my life, and pursued it.
How did that happen?
I worked with a couple police officers in the security field, and there was a couple incidences that occurred, and I thought, wow, that's it's kind of like, one, the skill set, and two, the moral compass that I felt that I had would just really kind of coincided with becoming a police officer. It's
and ultimately you were in SWAT.
Yeah, it's a SWAT officer. And
is that as glamorous as they make it look on TV?
To me, it was the best job on the department. It was like kind of like getting to going to the party and not having to clean up. You get to bust down doors or breach doors, throw flashbangs, and catch the bad guys, and that was a reward. But then you just kind of get to go and onto your next assignment. So it was a great job, and the training that went along with that was it was really good. I miss it.
You reminded me just now for a second of a guy. He runs an outfit called Black Rifle Coffee. Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah. Which?
Right. What's his name? Something Best.
Matt. Is it Matt?
I think is
Matt
his name.
Best? I think maybe Matt.
Is it? Yeah. He just wrote a book. Thank you for my service. Have you
I
heard
haven't,
of that?
but like I said, I'm a big YouTuber. It was really coincidence. I saw a video on him earlier today. It was kind of his life story and his struggles, and how he started. Grew up in Santa Barbara, went to the military, and so on and so forth. That's really funny you mentioned that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I saw a video of him today too. But and what you said reminded me of him. So while you were at the Kali Academy, you mentioned that you started out in the kids class, and then at age 15 you went into the
Hmm.
adult class, correct?
Went into that. Yep.
Right. Okay. So did you ever make it into the senior class and or the Jeet Kune Do
So
class?
yeah, here's what's funny. So I made the senior class, but by the time I got to the senior class, I don't even think there was a Jeet Kune Do class going on. You kind of see the magazines and you see Richard Bustillo and Jerry Petit and Dan Lee, training. I think that was kind of more or less dissolved. They might have gotten together every now and then, but there
Uh-huh.
was a senior class, and that was about it right there. That was kind of the top, of the game there. But
Right.
it's funny because when you walk in day one, you're practicing the concepts of Jeet Kune Do. There's no separation
Hmm.
between the philosophy and the concepts day one and reaching that senior level. You're just better, but you're
Right.
not given any
Yes.
secrets. Once you get there, it's all
Right.
like I said, day one, you're learning the concepts and streamlining your tactics and economy of motion and all those kind of things. That's all
Hmm.
day one,
Hmm.
and you just kind of progress. So
Yeah.
it really is kind of, yeah. Senior class was no different than a beginner's class. So you just had better fighters.
You're just
Yeah,
better at what you're doing.
and obviously a better
Right.
understanding of the concepts too. So yeah, I don't think there
Yeah.
was really a Jeet Kune Do class at that time.
Okay. I want you to comment on this. If you want to look pretty, train at our school. If you want to learn to fight, go to the Kali Academy.
Oh, when did you hear that? When did you? I thought
I
was
got that from I think I got that from something
yeah.
you
That's funny. I
wrote.
thought that was my private notes. Yes, and yeah, we were actually at a demonstration, and I can't remember where it was. Maybe the Scottish Rites demonstration, and we overheard
Mhm.
because there's different martial arts schools that were giving demonstrations, and we overheard someone,
Okay.
comment to a friend of theirs when we walked past them, and it was kind of like a ragtag group of guys. We didn't have the traditional uniforms, uh, it just didn't have that feel. It just, it was a different look. And he said,
Yeah.
if you want to look good, if you want to be pretty, come to our school. But if you want to learn how to fight, you want to go to the Kali Academy. And that was such a boost to hear something like that, because that's everything that we're trying to achieve. We didn't go for anything fancy or pretty. It was just really streamlined,
Right.
basic, hardcore, fighting. So I think that
Yeah.
was actually a compliment, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What's your biggest takeaway from that whole environment, from that era and that environment? Can you
My biggest
say?
takeaway, well, I
Yeah.
learned a lot about myself, and especially as a young man, you're given so much power at a certain level and so certain ranking. You really have kind of a lot more on the rest of the 90, 95, 98 percenters out there. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you have to be responsible with it, because I felt as a kid, I felt like
Hmm.
Superman, and I felt like I had that I had that secret that nobody had, and that was the gift of really taking care of myself. Like we
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
had much more on the rest of anybody out on the streets, uh, that with that ability, there was a sense of
Hmm.
responsibility too. I mean, it was easy to take care of yourself in a street fight. There wasn't any really too many schools that could match us, or
Right.
individuals who had that
Yeah.
kind of knowledge and that kind of training behind them. But you could
Yeah.
abuse it pretty easily. Um, so again, there was a certain responsibility that came along with that.
Where did you develop that? Because you talked about moral compass earlier. Where did that come from?
Again, I grew up in a pretty tough area. I grew up in a very violent home, and a lot of bad people, a lot of bad things going on around me. And I think, you either kind of go with that flow and use it as an excuse, or you just
Yeah.
really reject it. And that's nothing I ever want to be, and I think that's, where that division came. You could either go that way and that way. And what's funny is even the seedier, or the people that you would never see as having uh, anything to offer, I try to even take the good from them, and use it as part of, kind of like collectively, the sum total of everybody I've met. I've taken little bits of pieces from them, and I probably don't even have much of my own personality. It's everybody I've met, before.
I, I doubt that. And the weightlifting, the bodybuilding, when and why did that start?
So I saw that. I really enjoy lifting weights. I always have, but my whole focus is on combat, right? I don't try to do anything just kind of haphazardly, or as far as lifting weights for aesthetics. It really was to build a foundation, and my whole thinking was, if I could build a certain foundation, once I get into a fight, I really want to be able to grab that person and shake him like a rag doll and have my way with him. And so the way I was going to do that was, not by becoming a monster, but by having a certain level of strength and explosive strength. And the way I got that, or I tried getting that explosive strength, was through some of the power movements, powerlifting type of movements, the squats, the deadlifts, the military presses. And whatever came out of that was fine, but strength was what my main focus was in lifting weights. And it really was, I really wanted, like, if I could just snatch someone and just rattle them like crazy, that was the goal. Everything is, to me, was and is, geared towards the actual combat fighting,
Right.
So that's where that kind of that love and passion came from.
Yeah. Well, so it sounds as if functionality and practicality is the thing, or is one. Those are things that have driven you. So then you weren't very happy then at the Taekwondo school where you started, huh?
You did your homework. So the funny thing about the Taekwondo was, I was searching for something to get into, because really started my whole love for or interest in martial arts with the Kung Fu series. Yeah, that was like, I wanted to be Kane, I wanted to be a Shaolin monk. So, I was lucky enough to have an after school martial arts school, after school martial art classes. And I took that and became pretty close again with one of the instructors. He was a mentor to me during class and even outside class. I was lucky enough to have him kind of as my, my big brother for a short time.
Yeah.
And he really, again, a positive influence. I stole from him. I took from him. And I try.
It's called research.
Yeah. Right. So, so then that kind of sparked, moving on to different things. The program dissolved, and then I found the Kali Academy. So started in Taekwondo, and that class was brutal. I was 10 years old, and had no idea what I was getting into. But it was, you learned your lessons and your techniques, but boy, talking about discipline. As a 10-year-old kid, and you screwed up along the way, you'd get a good reverse punch in the stomach. You'd be in your horse stance, and the instructor would nail you right in the gut. And if you've never been hit in the gut like that as a kid, you're just what the hell, right? And then we'd be laying down on the belly up with our feet lifted off the ground, and you'd have the instructors running up and down on you. And at the time, it was like, what the hell am I doing this for? But what I learned from that was the ability to, really take a lot. And, it's not that bad. And later
Right.
on in life, when you want to, you're struggling, you want to give up, you kind of go back to those roots and like, I thought that was tough, and I survived. And as a kid,
Hmm.
you start developing a certain mentality that you can't be hurt. That I put up with that. I could put up with this, and nothing.
Yeah.
After this, everything is easy. So
Yeah. You think there's anything else out there that can deliver that kind of message to a kid as effectively as martial art?
just probably, sports, and you have the right coach, have the right mentor, and the right training,
Hmm.
instilling the right discipline. Yeah, I think so. You know,
Okay. But without the fighting
exactly.
ability.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So you called in your writings, you called the Kali Academy the original Fight
yeah.
Club,
That's how it felt.
right? Okay. Yeah. But you say you don't watch a whole lot of movies. So I wanted to ask you this. Did you know that Jeff Imada, Damon Caro, Rich Citrone, and David Leach,
Hmm.
right? Do you recognize those
I
four
recognize
names?
them. Yeah, yeah. But
Okay,
just by
because they
name.
were they were all involved in Fight Club.
Oh,
They
I
were
didn't know
all
that.
involved in
Oh,
Fight Club.
really? Yeah,
Yes.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they've done some amazing things, by the way, in movies too.
Yeah. Yeah. I keep trying to get Jeff Amata
Uh-huh.
on, but he is just way, way, way busy, you know. Um, so you said something about that. Let's see. Here's what you said. I don't really belong to the JKD community. So I wanted you to touch on that a little because I disagree with you. Now, I only just met you, but I disagree with
Okay.
you already.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me clarify
Right?
that. And
You know?
I think
Yeah.
the overall philosophy is always going to be there. Streamlining,
Right.
economy of motion, kind of what works, But I
Right.
have kind of this feeling that unless you study the Indonesian arts, Filipino arts, you can't be part of this group. And to me, Wing Chun, and they all have value. And this is coming from me.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
not putting anything down because they
Hmm.
definitely have the value. But just for me,
Right.
um, if you're not immersed in that, then you can't be part of this team, this group. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be held by any standards like that. And what I teach my students is what I have found to be useful for me. And in
Yeah.
doing so, I really kind of, you know, crystallized or boxed in, uh, or excluded a lot of the other martial arts. And it really is kind of not the Jeet Kune Do philosophy, because if I were to abide by that, I would probably not be so rigid in my teaching. I would probably give a lot more out
Mm.
and let them kind of taste,
Yeah.
the smorgasbord of different martial arts, because that's kind of what you do, right? And then you find out what's good for you. So I don't do that. It's just kind of what I have found useful in real life situations,
Yeah.
and that's where I give my students. And you know, um, that's kind of why I say I don't belong to that community. Because I don't
Okay.
really,
Okay. Well,
although I believe in it, I just I don't want
right.
anybody to call me out and say, "Hey, you're not this, you're not doing that properly." And so
Yeah.
if I don't identify it with it, or I don't label it, then I can't be called out on it. I could still teach what I believe in without having people, do that to me.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, if anybody gives you, any trouble, you just
Okay,
send them
here's
to
the
me.
deal. Right, right.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. You just go talk to Dwight. He's my publicist. He'll straighten everything out.
Great.
Right.
I will, for sure. You'll probably be getting a lot of
I mean,
calls.
because hey, that's not a problem, right? Because what you're doing is exactly what we're supposed to do in JKD, which is that which works for us,
Right, right. Hmm.
right? So how is anybody going to look at your level of experience? Because we talked about SWAT. We haven't talked about the security work, right? Some of which was with NBA players, correct?
Right, right.
Okay, so that's a lot of real world experience. What's more valuable than that?
Yeah, well, so doing executive protection, I did that after I retired from law enforcement. And that's really, honestly, it's a glorified babysitting job, and you really have to have good
Right.
verbal skills more than hands-on type of thing. Where I really got my experience, my real life experience, was probably even before law enforcement, and that's kind of, I've had my share of street fights, and again, I'm not the bully. I never went looking for it, but I wasn't in martial arts to have to turn the other cheek either. So if it came my way,
Yeah.
I certainly was. I didn't have the intelligence just to say I want to fight you, right? So or ego, I probably. I've had my share of street fights, and I know what has worked for me, and an immediate response to a threat was usually big, bold movements, gross motor skills, as they call it. And I realized very quickly I was attacked with a miniature baseball bat, kind of those trophy bats, and just kind of remind you that I was at the Akali Academy for a long time, and we practiced thousands of times how to disarm somebody, and do the snake, and
Right.
the gunting, and these kind of things. And when the proverbial hits the fan, and he swung, it was really a big, large movement, blocked that bat from coming down on my head, and then just a good smash to the leg with a kick. And I right after that fight, I go, why didn't I do the disarm? How come that wasn't an opportunity for me? And that was kind of a turning point in my way of thinking as well. And so that, coupled with a few other fights, it was kind of just a 1, 2, 3. If there was a response to that, it was kind of backing up or moving, or big blocks like that, and then 1, 2, 3, and repeat. Yeah, repeat 1, 2, 3. Maybe throw a kick in there for some good measure. But so I found that to be of value to me, and it bothered me for a while. Why didn't I do it's definitely muscle memory, the disarms and this and that, and here's an opportunity to really shine, disarm it, right? And it was an ugly movement, in a forward movement, hands were spread, and the block definitely worked, blocked the hand, and the bat went kind of past my head, and broke on the other side of the the concrete there. But it wasn't what I had been practicing for like years. So that was kind of a change in my thinking. So it's kind of what I still kind of, it was a valuable lesson for me, So,
right. Yeah. Let's talk about your thinking. What's a structure, or the structure now, then, behind what you were doing on Rat Beach, and now you told me you teach the striking class at a BJJ place, right?
So
so can you give me a little background on like your teaching methodology?
Yeah, so the Rat Beach Fight Club was really an opportunity for me to give. I wanted people to experience the Kali, basically, in the Filipino arts. And there really wasn't any punching or striking. It was, a lot of the Kali in the Filipino. I wanted them to experience it, because anybody can really experience that level of the art. You don't have to be a crazy athlete. You don't have to, you get to experience that art. And that was my hope, that people who came to that class really were challenged, and, with experiencing the Filipino arts. So the class that I teach at the jiu-jitsu school is a little bit of everything, but kind of streamlined into, kind of a, you know, I think you have to have a good boxing background to pull anything off, and everything off a boxing background. You could do the Muay Thai, you could do the elbows, you could, move in and move around your opponents. You develop speed, you develop a good body mechanics, good power. So my students really have to become very proficient at some of the boxing skills before they really move on to and get better at anything else. So
Okay.
it's streamlined
Okay.
there. It probably looks like more of a kickboxing class than anything if someone were to walk in on it, and
Yeah.
but I'll tell you, some of the other attributes that the Filipino arts have, like the Wing Chun and those kind of things, really, they definitely have their value, and I've definitely used them. The footwork, some of the angulation, and it's really helped. So things that I thought worked for me and during that moment, I try to pass on to those students. That's why I say it's kind of boxed into what worked for me.
Right. Another video I saw that today was Willie Pep and his V-step footwork.
Yeah.
And I go, V-step. I go, I don't know. Sounds like female triangle to
what
me.
was really, I think one of my strengths sparring at the Kali Academy was my ability to angle and offset from the fighters. And, I would hit, move, and I'd be on their side before they got and sometimes to the rear, because that's, the ultimate, right? When we get to the back.
Right.
To the rear, and before they could spin around, or once it spin around, I would, hit and then move to the other side. And that's all Kali. That's, that was not my boxing training. It was all Kali. That was that footwork that, we did time and time and time again. And that's kind of what I'm saying is that footwork in the Kali is invaluable. I think, you see a lot of some fighters like Lomachenko. He has that angled, in his boxing the same way. There's a few fighters who really, really get that. And I think that was a big value in my fighting too.
Yeah, I saw a video too about Pernell Whitaker and his, the fact that he was a southpaw and like had a whole strategy for his footwork, how to avoid, the orthodox fighter's left foot and what have you, and cross stepping and all this kind of stuff just from the boxing. So I agree with you 100%, man. People got to have a foundation.
Right. Well, speaking of some of the old fighters, I watch a lot of these old fights, and it almost mirrors something like a street fight. They have those attributes of, swinging for the fence and just, the movements and the kind of the bullying and the muscling their opponent. It looks very close to some of the things I've been involved in. But while I was at the Kali, I wanted to mention that while I was at the Kali Academy, for a while, for about a year, 76, 78, probably 78 to 79, I trained with a private lessons with one of the senior Jeet Kune Do, or one of the senior students who was a Jeet Kune Do in the Jeet Kune Do class. I trained exclusively with him, probably like one-on-one for 7 days a week, probably. And that's where I got a really good understanding of body mechanics and speed and timing and all the importance of those attributes. I came back to the Kali Academy after that, a different fighter. And the condition that he put me through, his name was Richard Mendez. And he was part of the GKD class. I think he went away too, and we just trained one-on-one together. But, prior to that, I was really just kind of punching and kicking, and if I were to defend myself and retaliate, it was just kind of, it really had no purpose. It was just haphazard. And, training with Mendez really helped increase my game. 90% probably. And I came back, one, in crazy shape, crazy good condition, and two, just a better I was seeing punches come at, seeing them. I was reading punches faster. You know what I mean? Like it was a lot easier for me to pick up. And he wasn't teaching me. I was his dummy, really. I mean, he saw me as an opportunity to train one-on-one. But there was no like, you're my student. It was like, we'll hold these focus gloves, and we'll exchange, hitting the focus gloves. But we did a hell of a lot of sparring. And another thing that he helped me with, and I was kind of more of a passive. I wasn't really into the really aggressive as a fighter, but he taught me how to turn on that killer instinct for that moment. Once you engage, and it's like that, that crazed animal, and then you disengage, and you're kind of cool and you're ready, maybe even a smile on your face. But once you engage and the punches are going, you're like a wild man, but a controlled wild man, And Bustillo taught me that, and not Bustillo, Mendez taught me that. And man, did it make a big difference in my fighting. I mean, the aggression, the ability to move in, stay in there, and not be as timid as I was as a fighter prior to that. And I think that really was a big turning point in my fighting ability to fight.
Yeah. Let's talk killer instinct for a second, because I wonder, because I told Paul Vunak when I talked to him that phrase is kind of synonymous with him, because he's done the video series entitled Killer Instinct and what have you, right? But did you know that the Kempo karate school that he inherited was down the street from the Kali Academy?
I saw your podcast. I didn't know that. Paul and I had many conversations when he was at the Kali Academy. Yeah. I knew he had a karate background, but I had no idea that there was a school in the area. That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. So that killer instinct, did you ever see it in Inosanto or Bustillo?
I definitely saw it in Inosanto when he'd do his demonstrations. It was really amazing to see. He'd be talking, and really, how humble he is. And all of a sudden he would just turn that switch on, and man, he looked like a Tasmanian devil going at, whoever he was demonstrating with. And it was so impressive. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely saw that as part of his, his demos.
I call those combat flashes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, probably so, right?
Right.
He was mad at somebody.
And Bustillo?
Bustillo, I never saw it, but he was always kind of cool and calm. And all three teachers, Ted, Dan, and Richard, all taught me something very unique. And with Ted, I was a kid. It was a formative, time growing up between 13 and I think I went to the adult class at 15, and Ed took a whooping from mostly everybody in the class. There were some, they didn't care how old I was, right?
Right.
Inosanto, I really have so much respect for him. And then Richard, I trained in his class for, from time to time too. And everything was very streamlined. And what's really funny about that is with Inosanto, it was all the cool stuff. He just would pull something out of the air and teach it and teach that and teach that. And it was really pleasing to the eye. And then you train with Richard, and it was very streamlined, the 1, 2, 3, and, the ABC. And you're going like, God, there's you're kind of looking at it like, I want that stuff over there. And what's funny is I've come to realize that was more me with Richard Bustillo and what he was teaching than some of the other stuff that was being taught by Inosanto. And but the difference is like that yin and yang. They both complement each other.
Exactly. I think sometimes that Inosanto willingly maybe even sacrifices and gives you all that stuff so that then you will go sort it out for yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Rather than telling you, nah, just do this. He'll like, no. Here's this, here's that, here's the next, here's the other thing, to make you do the work yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. But Bustillo told me one time, he goes, Dwight, teach them how to hit first, because defense is instinctive.
I like that. I totally makes sense, doesn't it?
That's what he told me. He goes, yeah, if you tell somebody I'm going to hit you in the head, their hands will come up to defend. But now they don't know how to hit back.
Yeah.
So he said, teach them how to hit first.
That makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Yeah. I love that guy. He and I used to have big airline conversations, because I worked for Eastern. When I met him, I was still working for Eastern Airlines, and he had retired from Continental.
Right.
I think it
Continental,
was. Right? Yeah. So we talked about BJJ a little while back. Where were you, whenever it was, August or November of '93, when UFC 1 hit? Where were you? What were you doing?
I remember that. I was at a good friend of mine, his house, and we watched that. You're talking about the UFC? Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. And it was like,
what did you end up thinking?
I was very impressed with it. There's still a lot of guys who are like, oh, I'll just do this and I'll do that. And, but boy, proof is in the pudding, right? I mean, they really showed how effective ground fighting in, particularly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. Yeah. I have a lot of respect for it. Definitely.
Yeah. Do you spend time at the school where you're teaching in their stuff? Have you looked at it?
I don't. I mean, I have looked at it, but I don't train so much in it as much as I probably should. I wish I could, but I totally value it. Take nothing from it. I mean, I totally respect it.
Right. Talking about taking, what do you think, right, people can take away? What are some of the things people can take away from being consistently involved in sparring and fighting?
So through sparring, and that's essential. I mean, and I'm talking, some pretty serious banging. You got to take care of your training partner, but I really think that you have to appreciate that level of sparring, because you build a lot of things in that. And one particularly is you don't panic. Once you're under the gun and someone's firing on you, you don't want to be gun shy and just kind of curl up and just start taking a beat. And once you get to a certain level, but you understand that, this is okay. I'm going to survive this. Even if you learn how to kind of ball up and take it and then give it back. Right. I think that is very important, because a lot of people, will face that those punches and just panic and may not even come back to the school after that, But you have to understand how you'll react when those punches are coming at you, and when you take a shot. It's going to be okay, unless your legs go wobbling, you fall down. But if you get hit, you're going to know that, hey, that wasn't too bad. I don't really have to fear this. If I get hit and, get a black eye out of this, but I give it back to them, tenfold, and we're talking outside the dojo walls, right? We're talking about the street.
Right. Exactly.
It's okay. I've been hit before, and I've been hit by bigger and better and badder people than you are. And, let's bring it on. It's going to be okay. I'm all right. I didn't fall down and, got a black eye or whatever, but, I feel sorry for you, because then I'm on the attack, So I think for no other reason, I think sparring is essential. And you just start picking up those punches a lot faster too, reading them. You start developing a strategy and a fight strategy. And, after time, I think strategy is really important in a person's game. It's just not kind of just punching and punching, and, you start developing something. You start even maybe reading the person's where he's going to punch and when he's going to punch, or maybe baiting him into punching a certain place, and then you counter off of it. So, yeah.
Who's Danette Howard?
Just a friend, or a cousin. I mean, I thought you read it. She said hello.
She says so proud of. She says so proud of my big cousin.
Hi, Danette. Miss you.
Oh man, how cool, right?
Yeah. Well, see, if I'm bringing your
Yeah,
family
I
members
know.
out, man, I'm doing the
Yeah,
right
I thought
thing.
you were just pulling a
You
name
know?
out. I'm like, okay, what? I didn't. Okay.
No, no, no. Yeah, it's right here. Right. Okay. So I want to touch on one last thing with you. Well, actually, two things. Are you are you a grandfather? You're not a
I am a
grandfather, are you?
grandfather.
You're not.
Yes,
You're old
I'm a
enough to be a
grandfather.
grandfather.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh
My
my
grandson's 2 years
gosh.
old
Okay.
now. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah. A lot
God.
of
All
fun.
right.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. So all the stuff that we've talked about over the past 60
Hmm.
minutes, right? I get the sense though that you have come to a place of peace and calmness
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
all this time.
Yeah. Yes, because when I was younger and not so much had the energy, everything was go, go, go. It was, training, everything was centered around training, and it was very self-serving.
Mhm.
I was given an opportunity to teach by Inosanto, and I really, because it kind of interfered with my personal training, I didn't do that for too long. And can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
got you.
and so I didn't do that too long. Everything, like, again, it was train, 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 and it was training at a certain intensity that I'm not really sure what I was preparing for. Because if it wasn't the blasting the weights until you just couldn't do anymore, and then you go a little bit harder,
Yeah.
or fighting, and you go that extra round, or you hit harder and longer, and everything was centered really around combat, around fighting. And in doing so, you probably, or I feel like maybe I didn't form certain relationships or bonds with maybe the classmates, or maybe got to even experience things outside the martial art world. It was my life was
Mhm.
pretty streamlined. It was, very
Mhm.
Spartan-like for a long time. And, I look back on that and I'm like, yeah, that was really, I probably missed out on a lot, especially missed out a lot as a kid, because most of my time again was training, when most of the kids my age in high school were having a good time, and
Right.
hanging out. It was really
Yeah.
pretty exclusive, in either in the gym or in my room, or something, hitting a bag or training or doing something, and I don't really regret it so much, but if I had a chance to do it again, maybe I'd do it a little bit different. But yeah, it was.
Yeah. I think we're supposed to say that we regret it, right? But it's never
Right.
true,
Yeah.
I mean, because I did the same thing. I spent more time training as a
Uh-huh.
youngster than hanging out with
Yeah.
everybody
Right.
else, right? And look at me today. I'm still doing that.
But it's funny because it kind of, yeah, you can't really look back at it with too many regrets, because it made you who you are today. And I
No,
kind of like who I am, you
yeah,
know, right?
right,
Yeah.
right. Hey,
Yeah.
well, I'll tell you this. I like who you are too, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity to
Yeah.
do
It was
this.
my pleasure.
And
Yeah.
I would,
It wasn't
no, this was.
a lot painless than I thought it was going to be. It was kind of like this prior to, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, no. Right. So pass that word on to Freddie Jinda and tell him, Freddie, it's gonna be painless,
Yeah, I
man.
know, for
All
sure, for sure.
right.
Yeah, I hope you get him, because he has some good stories too. I mean, that guy's an outstanding
Oh
fighter.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's part of because it's been proven that people learn and that lessons are are better transmitted through stories. And I think that in the JKD world, I mean, I'm sure other martial art, families have theirs too,
Hmm.
of course. But the JKD world, man, I mean, we got stories from Seattle all the way down.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I
That
mean,
that school
right?
was amazing,
And,
because you'd see people literally coming from the other side of the world to just study, or at the other side of on the East Coast, just to sit and watch in a Santos class. It was the
Mhm.
only school of its kind at that time. It was feel privileged
Yeah.
and lucky to,
Yeah.
study and train at that school. There's a lot of good memories.
My nickname was the Inasano Academy of Martial Arts and International Youth Hostel.
Right.
Right?
You live there,
Because
right?
there used to be kids. There used to be kids from
Yeah.
all over the world staying
Yes.
there, man.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you.
Anyhow,
Right.
all right. Yeah,
Mhm.
man. Yeah. All right, Cameron Rico, it's been a pleasure
Yeah,
talking to
my
you, man.
pleasure. It's just thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure thing. All
All
right.
right.
Okay. We'll talk
See you
again
later.
soon. All right. Take care. All right. That's one of the good ones, right? I love it when it's somebody that I don't know, and then we just kind of click, and they turn out to be like really, really cool, you know? Right? Okay, so that was Cameron Rico. Oh man, I forgot to ask him about I think it's knuckles and knives. Anyhow, I'll talk to him and see if I can and get you in there. But he's on Facebook, Cameron Rico, so you guys can just look him up and check him out. Right? Okay, so that's it for today. So feel free. Like, share, comment, ask questions. I'll go through everything. If I can't answer the question, I'll pass it on to Cameron and have him give his input. Sign up for notifications for when we go live here on Facebook. And please subscribe to the YouTube channels for the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, for this program, the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, and then also for the FMA files. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. At ilovejeetkundo.com, the Quick Skills Series Volume 1 is still up and available. Next Friday, which will be episode number 85, is with Jay Cooper, aka Der Hunder, and he'll explain that to us. So that'll be a regular time, 6 p.m. Next Friday, and I'll see you back here at that time, all right? Or see some of you next Wednesday for the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Take care. Okay. All right. I see you, but your image is a little, okay, it was frozen. Do you see me okay?
Audio. Can
Yeah,
you hear me?
yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
How about now?
I hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right. But so I don't know whose internet connection it is, if it's mine or yours, but it took a long time to connect. So um if we have trouble tomorrow, have you ever used
Yeah,
Skype or Zoom?
I haven't, but I won't. So I won't be at this location tomorrow when we do this. So,
Okay.
and it's probably just user error. I probably didn't plug in properly. So that's probably what
Okay.
it could be.
All
So
right.
I'm glad we're doing this test run.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is perfect now, right now.
Okay.
So if the signal's stronger, where you're going to be, but so whatever settings it is that you have, because you gotta you have to have notifications on your phone um, um, open, and then I send you the invitation, and then you just accept it, and then it connects, and we go from there.
Okay.
Right?
Sounds pretty simple enough.
It is once you get used to it, it is. And listen, I don't want you to worry about having to to fit a particular bill or what have you.
Okay.
I'm just talking to guys who have a JKD and Kali background, and whatever direction it is you went in, it's fine, because we're all on the same path, but doing it our way.
Exactly. Right.
And
And
I just want to talk to as many people as possible that have, somewhat of a similar background. But I've been talking to guys from the Inosano lineage, the Ted Wong lineage, the Jesse Glover lineage. I mean, everybody.
right.
And that's what I'm trying to show. And then if it's somebody like you who has stories from the old Kali Academy, then I want to hear them.
Okay, great. Hey, I did put together a few talking points. There's a few things I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
Can I forward those to you? And
Sure.
if you want to fit them in, fine. If you don't, then that's fine too.
Hey, you are the topic. So
Okay.
whatever it is you want to talk about is fine with me.
Okay. Yeah, I'll forward those to you. What's the best way to get those to you?
If you want to put them in the same Facebook Messenger or text
Okay.
them, I'll tell you what. I'll give you my number. I'll send you my number right now in Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
And then I'll send you my email as well, and you can just do it that. Yeah.
Perfect.
One thing that I'm really interested in knowing
Got it.
is whether or not our paths ever crossed. Because
Yeah, right.
you know,
I started in '76 and the kids class, and then I moved up to the adult class and went away for about a year, trained with a private student or as a private, and then came back and finished the time out until the Kali Academy, went to the IMB Academy and trained there for, a number of years. So I was definitely started from '76 all the way until they closed.
right.
And I trained under Nisanto most of the time. I trained under Bustillo and started out with Ted Lukai.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our paths must have crossed, man.
I'm sure. I was talking to Ernie Emerson not too long ago, the knife maker, and it's interesting how our lives paralleled at the academy too, right down to sweeping floors and cleaning the mirrors on weekends. But I don't remember him, so that's kind of interesting too. I'm sure we crossed paths somewhere.
Yeah. All right, so we'll cover all of that tomorrow, man. Cool.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Same here.
Nice meeting you.
Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, sure thing.